Welcome to West Country Wanderings and welcome to another one in my canal series. Today we're in the far eastern section of the region that I cover. We're in the West Oxfordshire town of Abingdon-on-Thames, sits right on the River Thames. But we're actually here for one of my canal series today, and we're looking back at the Wilts Berks Canal, the eastern section of it, because it was in the town of Abingdon-upon-Thames where the canal entered the River Thames. And the whole purpose of the canal was to move coal from the Somerset coalfields from around the village of Poulton and Timsbury, which we have visited before, to move it across through the Somerset Coal Canal and up into the Wilts Berks Canal through the Kennet and Avon Canal, Semmington, which is where the Wilts Berks starts, and then makes its way right through Wiltshire and what was then Berkshire and now is present day Oxfordshire, to join the Thames here at Abingdon. So what I hope to do today is first of all look at what remains of the Wilts Berks and Abingdon. I'm not hoping for too much because a lot of the former canal has now been built on, but we're going to have a look, see if we can find where the canal met the river here in the town. And we're also going to have a look at what's known as Jubilee Junction, which was constructed on the River Thames in 2006 to make a new cutway for the Wilts Berks and a new route to join the original line of the canal back towards Semmington. So I hope you can join me again here on West Country Wanderings for another canal adventure. So here we are by far the Thames. There's the Thames just in there. It's got a fabulous bridge here, and we'll hopefully be able to look a little bit more briefly around the town later in the video if I've got time to do that today. I just started the introduction, excuse the traffic noise, at St Helen's Church, and next to St Helen's Church you have these magnificent almshouses too, so it's a very picturesque location here. We're going to make our way just to the south of here, where there used to be a former mill, and then see where the canal joined this magnificent river, the River Thames. Now this fantastic bridge behind me, which was built at Ackrams in Bristol in 1824 for the Wilts Berks Canal Company, and it was around this point here that the Wilts Berks joined the River Thames. There's also a mill here, St Helen's Mill, in this area. There are some flats behind. I think part of the original mill building has been repurposed in those flats. There's also the original Aberdeen Hospital just the other side of the route of the canal. What we're going to do now is follow the old route of the canal as much as we can. We probably won't see a great deal till we get to the other end where we join where the new route of the Wilts Berks, and there is a new mill there too. I think it's actually called, ironically, Old Mill. So we can see what with that, we can trace the route as much as we can. So why not join me on the journey now, crossing through Abingdon to follow the line of the old Wilts Berks Canal. So why did the Wilts and Berks have this bridge built? Well, it was to enable access to their wharf. This here is actually the River Ock. River Ock joining the River Thames here. And their wharf is just a bit further down from this bridge near some gardens. I think they're called Margaret something. We're going to have a look and we'll see if there's any remains of the wharf there too. Now it is difficult to work out the layout of the original location. That down there is a culvert. It could have been the course of the canal as it ran alongside the mill, St Helens Mill, and made its way up from both the River Ock and the River Thames at this point. So it's then curving in a southerly direction before then striking out and turning around a curve heading in a westerly direction. So we can see what we can see next. So this was the extent of St Helens Wharf behind me. Just up there is where that bridge was and where the River Ock entered the River Thames. And here is where the canal would have once come from Sewington Locks, also where it joins the Kennet and Avon Canal. So it was this point here that the Wilts and Berks left the River Thames, making its way what is now a cul-de-sac. There is a building down there which may have originally been part of the Wilts and Berks. Maybe it was one of their offices for this eastern section of the canal here in what is now Oxfordshire, as I say, what it was then, of course, Berkshire. Now this location here, though it doesn't look like it now, was once the site of the terminal basin, the far eastern section here, Abingdon on the Wilts and Berks Canal. Our route will now continue parallel through here. We're going to be walking along Caldecott Road, which runs just slightly north to the original route of the canal. But yeah, the canal, where you can see the triangle, if you like, coming to a point, that's where it would have continued in a westerly direction from here in the town centre of Abingdon. So this is as far as we can go following the canal bed of the former Wilts and Berks here in Abingdon, on this section at least. So I'm going to go through that hedge and make our way across to what is called Newcut Mill. I got the name wrong earlier on the video. I think I called it New Mill. And of course, at the time, it would have been new, back at the turn of the 19th century. So as closely as I can, I'm following the original route of the canal at this point. Obviously this road and the houses to the left of me weren't here then. That's the Caldecott Road on the right. And you have this access road for the properties, which is pretty much running alongside the former route of the Wilts and Berks Canal here in Abingdon. So we're now in Mill Road and our canal is behind the houses. This is newish estate, probably 1970s, on the right hand side of me here. At the end of this road we should come into Mill Lane, which should then take us down to Newcut Mill. Now thankfully we've left urbanisation behind. We're still on Mill Lane, which is a no-through road, a no-through track taking us down to the weir on the River Ock. Now at some point along here, according to my map, there should be a footpath which joins us to the right, and it's at that point that the canal would have crossed the lane. Not sure if there would have been a bridge there. Anyway, we'll go and have a look. Excuse the dog in the background. So there's our footpath there on the right. So our canal is in that undergrowth there, with the litter as well. And it cut across Mill Lane down in that direction, so we can't follow it there. There's no footpath in that direction, just a bit of a boggy field. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue down Mill Lane till it gets to the mill and the River Ock. So this here is the River Ock. We've also got a footbridge here too. So that's the River Ock behind us, and just a bit further around that bend is the New Cut Mill aforementioned. It looks like the building is obviously now private properties and it's screened by trees, so I probably won't be able to get a close enough shot for you, but I'll see what I can do here in a bit. So this is an interesting point here. There's Mill Lane on the left of the screen, and the canal bed is there on the right, obviously now overgrown, but you can certainly make out very clearly the right-hand bank of the former canal bed there. And what happens at this point, and I'll just pan the camera around, is the canal then crossed over Mill Lane, heading through those gates there, down to the river, where there was a weir. So it was a cut through, and then the canal continued on its merry way, heading towards Semmington. Some 40 odd miles, is it 47? I can't remember. I'll put in the exact number of miles, how many miles it is towards Semmington from this location. But that's New Cut Mill House there, just beyond the fence, the red bricked building. You can hear the weir on the River Ock, the other side of it. As I say, this is the point where it went across here and then went through a cut through, making its way in a westerly direction. Not only is this a pretty weir here, it's also the River Ock, which is in the foreground, and where the canal cut across it here, you can make out a low stone wall in kind of the middle and the far right of your screens now, and that's where the canal would have come in and joined the River Ock at this point, and then making its way off, as I say, in a westerly direction. Now that's as much of the original canal that we're going to look at today in the Abingdon-on-Thames area, but that's not the end of the video, because in 2006 they built Jubilee Junction to celebrate the Jubilee of one of the charities involved in canal preservation work. That's actually at Abingdon Marina, so I'm going to continue the footpath south from here and have a look and see what that looks like too, because that'll form the new route. They're not going to reopen this part of it because, as I said, with all those houses that we saw earlier on in the video, they have to cut through a new route to get it across in a westerly direction from this point to rejoin up just a bit further. I think that's the A34 behind me. I'm not entirely sure, but I'll drop it in what number road that is in a westerly direction from here. So now in Stonehay Lane, its alternative name is O'Day Hill, which is where it leads to. And of course it also leads to Stonehill Farm, which looks like it's a horse riding centre too. And beyond that are some gravel pits, and beyond that is Abingdon Marina, where the new section of the Wilts Berks Canal is complete, according to my notes, with a new towpath. The signage on both the map and the leaflet is a little bit confusing, so I'm not entirely sure the exact route, but hopefully be able to work it out, and then I can reinsert that back onto the map again. So this here is this Stonehill Community Garden. It says please take a leaflet. Unfortunately I've run out. If I can find anything on the web, I'll put that in the usual way. But looks a decidedly lovely project. Also great to hear fantastic bird song again. That's the first time I've heard that since arriving here in Abingdon. So between gravel pits at this location, we need to follow this footpath now to take us down to the marina, and that'll also be running parallel to where the new route of the Wilts Berks Canal will be, and a new towpath too. So the new route of the Wilts Berks Canal here will be running in between two large gravel pits, one on that side and one on that side. Very similar to what we've seen previously on my Stroudwater and Thames and Severn Canals updates at Cotswold Water Park, of course, near South Cerney. Very similar type of arrangement. And of course, they can't use the original route that went through Abingdon because of all that housing that you saw earlier in today's video. So this is it, this is Jubilee Junction. Yes, we have a narrowboat on it as well. So that's looking back towards the direction of the gravel pits, and the River Thames is immediately behind me. And we'll just have a look, see what we can see along this section here, Jubilee Junction at Abingdon-on-Thames in Oxfordshire. Well, I don't know how old that sign is, but it says the proposed junction. Well, the junction is already here now, Jubilee Junction. And it's fabulous to see a new stretch of the Wilts Berks Canal here in Abingdon in Oxfordshire, right by the banks of the River Thames. So that's it, that's the famous Jubilee Junction that was built here in 2006 on the Wilts Berks Canal. I can't tell you how excited I am to discover this. Well, I knew it was here, but seeing it in the flesh makes it all the more exciting. Cut. One thing I forgot to say in wrapping up the video was that I've been using a leaflet today. Here it is. Now, this wasn't on the Wilts Berks Canal Trust's website, but it was produced by them back in 2006, and much like I can gather, I downloaded it and printed it off. It's a really brilliant leaflet. Can't tell you how much I've found this useful today. And it just says Abingdon Walk. That's how it was titled, Wilts Berks Canal Trust. And as I didn't find it on their website. I found it on another Canal Trust website, so there's a link to it. So if I can find the link, I'll include that in the description of today's video. But very useful, particularly if you want to come to Abingdon and have a look for yourselves. Anyway, back to the programme. Now, a couple of things strike me as odd is that since this was built in 2006, no further restoration work has been carried out by the Wilts Berks Canal Trust in this area. And I think the reason for that is that there are much more other projects going on in places like Chippenham, Wootton Bassett, which we've seen before, of course, and Swindon. And some of those other restoration projects I will cover, and also I'll be covering some of the arms of the canal as well, like the ones that went into Wantage and Calne, which don't get often covered very much on the YouTube. So I'll hopefully be able to put that right. But yeah, it's fantastic being here. Another one that struck me as odd is that when I was walking through Melksham the other day in Wiltshire, through a housing estate, you had loads and loads of Wilts Berks Canal Trust signs showing you the way of the footpath and where the footpath, the towpath should I say, used to be before the houses were built on top of the canal bed. But here, at the end of the Wilts Berks Canal, where it meets the River Thames, apart from this wonderful new sign behind me, I'll do a close-up of that in a second, insert that around about now, there are no other path signs. So I've come along through the gravel pits today, but there were no markers telling me. In fact, sometimes I was sure, am I allowed to walk on here? Because it's not marked as a right of way. Now, I know the Wilts Berks Canal Trust have got plans to restore that as a complete towpath section as they work their way in a westerly direction. I don't know the timescales of that happening. Obviously, it's dependent on fundraising to get money and looking at other fundraising projects and people that give in money to get this project done. It would be brilliant to see that. I hope you have enjoyed this Canal Series video here on West Country Wanderings today. There'll be other Canal Series ones from the Wilts Berks Canal, looking at other sections like Pewsham Locks, all the other sections that are going on. Dauncey, there's so many that are going on there. The great work that the Wilts Berks Canal Trust are doing. Fantastic job, guys and gals, really appreciate it. And we'll be looking at some of those in future videos. I'll also be doing other canal videos. We're going back to the Stroudwater and Thames and Severn Canal, particularly around a Stroud brewery site. So lots of things happening there to tell you about that. That'll be happening in update number 14. And I'll be looking at some other canals as well, including a revisit back to the Somerset Coal Canal, of which this was an important factor, because without the Somerset Coal Canal, there would have been no point having the Wilts and Berks in the first place. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it today. Take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and I hope to see you on West Country Wanderings again very, very soon. All the best for now. Bye-bye.